There you go. You're live. You're live.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. We're just going to go live in a minute. Assalamu alaikum everybody. Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Community Talk Show. I'm your host, Mohammed Amin. You're listening to me live on Radio Aapke Awaaz, which is www.aapkeawaaz.co.uk. You can listen to us live 24 hours a day on www.aapkeawaaz.co.uk, which is www.aapkeawaaz.co.uk. You can download Radio Garden app. You can download Hindi radio app off Google Play Store, or if you've got an iPhone, an iStore, on the App Store. And basically, if you choose radio, if you choose Aapke Awaaz on there, save it as your favorite, and then you can listen to all our programs live on there. As always, our contact number is 07944 808 141, and recording of our programs is always available on live feeds on Facebook and also on YouTube. And the purpose of my program has always been a bit of English, a bit of Pahari, and give you, the listeners, an opportunity to learn about community events, what's happening and what have you. And more importantly is what you can learn, and also I'm learning as well from you guys, because if you folks out there are listening to my program, make some comments, want me to put some special programs on as well, when I research those programs, I learn as well. And this is the whole idea of our community talk show. And today's guest is an interesting project that's happening in the heart of our own community in Ward End, Washwood Heath. Washwood Heath, Ward End, and close to Alum Rock. And I will introduce you to my guest in a few minutes about Parkrun, and give you the opportunity to learn more about a fantastic initiative in this current climate. And guess what? Life is difficult as it is, with financial, economic crisis as we're all going through. However, this initiative is fantastic. It helps you improve the quality and the well-being of your health. And guess what? No extra cost whatsoever. Without further ado, I will introduce you to my guest, who's sitting beside me here in the studio here at Radio Aapke Awaaz, is Nareen Khan. And I would ask her to have a discussion and tell us a bit more about this fantastic initiative. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to my community talk show, Nareen, and lovely to see you. Obviously, I've had an insight into your fantastic initiative because I was out there on the weekend recording it live. But give me an overview of Parkrun, and especially why is it important? Firstly, what is it, please?
Well, Parkrun is it's a global initiative, firstly. And can I just say before I go on this, any of the opinions are a lot of them my personal opinions in regards to Parkrun, apart from the fact that it's a global initiative, and it's really to promote the health and well-being of adults and children. And it started in 2004 by a Londoner who's originally from Zimbabwe. And as you said, Amin, it's a completely free, no subscription fee, no money up front, no money, to pay in lieu, nothing. It's completely free. There's adult parkrun events. But I'm here really to talk about the children's event, which happens globally, all around the world, in participating parks and areas on a Sunday at 9 o'clock. And it's simply just to engage children and develop early healthy habits. And that's really my reason for bringing it to Ward End, really, to develop health literacy from from the very early stages. And Park Run for children, it's a 2-kilometre run, and although it's called Park Run, many of our children don't choose to run the whole of the 2 kilometres. Some of them will walk, they'll skip. Some children bring skipping ropes. There's no wheels, so we don't scoot and we don't skate and we don't cycle. But you know, as you saw on Saturday, we do have a variety of children, a variety of runners. Some children who are, you know, probably going to be future professional runners. Other children are there for the health benefits, maybe. Other children really just come along to make friends and have fun. And that's the reason. I mean, there were a couple of reasons that I wanted to bring Park Run to Ward End. Really, the key reason originally stemmed from my son and I having to travel all the way over to Cannon Hill Park for our nearest children's park run, and really that was the key reason why I kind of initiated the idea. And it took about 3 years before we got it up and running, because we had to secure funding and permission from the local authority, who don't actually like park runs. So it wasn't as easy as just a case of saying, right, okay,
just turn it up and let's go do this. No,
it wasn't.
This is the bit where a lot of the people behind the community don't realise that for you to get to this stage, having dealt with the local authority on a number of issues, it's not just turning up and say, right, we're going to run down the park.
No, it's not, no. And currently, I mean, the equipment for Park Run, I am still lugging around in the boot of my car because I haven't found anywhere to store it just yet. We are in conversations with different parts of the local authority, but I haven't really managed to secure a place to kind of hold our stuff on a weekly basis. So yeah, Park Run. It's as I say, it's free. It's fun. We have families from all walks of life. Thank you. All walks of life coming, and we're growing every week. We're growing. We have families that now, because actually there are only about 2 local park runs within kind of. We have Ward End now. We have Cannon Hill, and we have another one at Bruton Park, but really they're the only ones.
And if people don't know, Bruton Park is Solihull, which is further afield.
Yes, yeah. I mean, this is within walking distance of thousands of families, really, and that we really want to reach out to, because again, I will go back to the fact that actually, if we promote health literacy from a young age and develop those healthy habits, we lower many of the of kind of the diseases that are active in our community. You know, cholesterol, type 2 diabetes, child obesity, and lots of cardiovascular illnesses, which actually exercise lowers the risk of developing those. So it's a huge, you know, it's very far-reaching. The impact of it can be far-reaching.
But you know, coming out on the Sunday morning, and I must admit, I had my fleece on, I had my thick coat on, and I think I had another fleece in the car. For somebody like me to come out and see, it was quite an inspiration to say, hang on a minute, there's plenty of children out here with their parents, and some parents were taking part as well. And, you know, it was a lovely experience to see that on a Sunday morning, and I appreciate it was at 9 o'clock. What's the reason behind the 9 o'clock start?
Well, the 9 o'clock start is something that when I initially recruited volunteers, some of our volunteers actually did say, well, we don't think, Nareen, that people will wake up at 9 o'clock. And, you know, and I agreed with them that potentially, obviously, there was a lot of truth in that, because when I had my children, my midwifery services didn't start until 10 a.m.
Right, yeah.
because they said that, oh, Nareen, you know, we don't start until 10 a.m. because nobody will turn up at 9 o'clock.
Right, that's right.
But unfortunately, I could not do anything about the 9 o'clock start, because that's for insurance purposes, that is Parkrun's policy. And although they try to, in order to make it more accessible to the local community, the ambassador for the Birmingham Parkruns did try, but head office said that unfortunately it has to be a 9 o'clock start.
No, thank you. I think it's still a fantastic initiative. Listeners, you're listening to the Community Talk Show on Radio Aapke Awaaz. I'm your host, Mohammed Amin, and as always, on Wednesday evenings from 8 till 9, you've got my Community Talk Show, and this evening I'm privileged to have Nareen Khan, who is, believe it or not, a working mother, and she's given up her time this evening to spend some time with us to enlighten us about the project that she's involved in. And she's the volunteer for the Park Run, which happens in Ward End Park every Sunday morning at 9 o'clock. Nareen, those of us who don't know 2K, how many laps is that round the park?
Well, if you're familiar to the park, it's the laps that we do are the laps by the entrance, which is by the White House.
Yeah.
And I don't know how best to explain it. Apart from it's the pathway.
So you start at the White House, you go up to the railway line, and you go down effectively parallel to Slatefield Road and come
that's
back.
right. Then
Thank you. Back around by the trees.
That's right. By the big acorn, and then the second time you pass the acorn, you veer off to your right, and that's it. You're done.
Okay.
You're done.
So again, let's say I want to start Sunday morning, 9 o'clock. I'm raring to go. How long will it take me?
Well, we have children that run it in, and bear in mind this is the children's run, isn't it, the 2K? So we have children that have done it in 11 minutes. We have had children that have done it in 10, I think that's our record. And then we have children who, for my son in particular, who has hypermobility, which is a joint issue, and it can take, in last week, it took him 40 minutes. But we always have, obviously, Park Run for Juniors is very, very heavily safeguarded. And we have 8 marshals. We have a marshal at every 100 metres. So, and they ensure that the children are safe, that they stay on the path. We also have a tail walker. Now, the tail walker is the adult that walks behind the last child.
Okay.
So my child, who's often the last one, our tail walker will usually walk with him or walk behind him. And last week, I think he to ensure that he completed the 2 kilometre laps, they looked for squirrels, and they collected conkers and acorns. That was just a way of encouraging my son to complete the 2 laps, because usually he will just do 1 and then give up. But last week was his first full 2 kilometre. But again, as I say, he walked. And although it's called Park Run, initially this was for adults. So it was a lot of the adults do run when they do the 5K, but there isn't a 5K in Ward End. It's just the juniors that we do on a Sunday. But we would like to bring a 5K to Ward End for adults in the near future. But I've kind of gone off tangent now.
That's right, no problem whatsoever. Listeners, we're here having a conversation with Nareen Khan, who's the volunteer coordinator for the Park Run that's run for children in Ward End Park on a Sunday morning at 9 o'clock. And those of you who are following Radio Aapke Awaaz on our live Facebook feeds, if you follow my feed from last week, you'll be able to see literally within 20 to 40 minutes, it was all done. So literally, I'd say between 9 and 10 o'clock, it's all done. And we talk about improving the quality of your lifestyle. You want to live a healthy lifestyle. If you give a little bit of time to your children, and whilst, as Nareen said, this is just for children, a question for you, Nareen. Say parents want to come along and support their children and just run along with their children. Is that possible?
Absolutely. And we do have, I think I am actually going to be doing that one of the weeks to encourage my little one a little bit more, but we often do have parents that do that. In fact, it happens almost every week, doesn't it? So a lot of the children then, as they become more familiar to the route, as they become more familiar to the other participants and the volunteers, they choose to run by themselves. But initially, we do have lots of parents that run alongside their children, and that is perfectly welcome. And it was a tail walker, I think, coming back to what I was talking about. The tail walker stays at the back again to ensure safety, but also he is there from a confidence point of view for the children, to ensure that no child is made to feel that they were last.
And you know what I liked about the park run was you had a tail walker, and along the course you had marshals, and the marshals were motivating the children to say, come on, you're nearly there, you're a third there, 2/3 there, you're nearly there, it's the last lap. And that sometimes is just that little bit where you think the children are tired and they've had it, that just perks them back up again, because I'm nearly there now.
Absolutely. I think that's, we're very lucky with our marshals, and some of our marshals were actually parents that were really grateful for this opportunity for their children, and they would just come along and just sit on the bench, and then over time they've become more comfortable, and I've asked them to volunteer. And I mean, you saw Mariam, the lady with the 2 very small children, and she's our marshal. We place her strategically at position 2 because we know that there's an open space for her 2 much smaller children to kind of get out of the buggy if they need and want to. And for her, this has been a huge thing, because prior to this, she was very socially isolated. She hadn't made any friends.
That's the other thing I've noticed, that it's not one ethnic group. There's different ethnicities. There's a number of families there from different backgrounds.
Absolutely.
And one of the other things I've thought was important to point out was Andrew, one of your marshals who travels with his family all the way from Nuneaton. This was his 50th park run as well last weekend.
Yes,
so again,
yes.
The fact that we've got people who are passionate about park run come all the way from the likes of Nuneaton into our area, it should inspire us to say, come on guys, we us in Ward End, Washwood Heath, Hodge Hill, Allen Rock, we can do better. And at the end of the day, everybody always has a desire to improve their quality of life, and if we can't take responsibility, then who will?
I think that's one of my key drivers was really to kind of start to give children more responsibility from an early age. So, as an adult, as adults, we can't always change mind frames, but I'm a teacher by profession and by trade, and I always find that when I work with children, if I instill good habits in them from a very, very early age, they can aim to continue those and take responsibility for those habits, because they can't, there's lots of things that children aren't responsible for, the food that they get on their plate, or, finances, etc. But if we can develop some of the habits that they can then take responsibility for as they get older, we are, supporting them to develop those habits that they can then take into adulthood and take ownership of and be responsible for.
There's some research I was reading, and basically what it said was there's a greater initiative from the schools to say the last 2 years have been really difficult because of COVID-19 for families, everybody across the board. That social interaction, that outer space, those greener environments have been restricted for obvious reasons. However, if you give a child an opportunity to run around amongst friends for half an hour, believe it or not, you open the airwaves in your lungs, right? You take in that fresh air that's so lacking when you're stuck at home in a stuffy environment. But more importantly, your concentration, your coordination suddenly improves. And yet at the end of the day, like I said to you in the beginning of the program, cost is an issue for families and what have you, and they want to entertain and encourage their children to better. And what better would do to like take your children out on a Sunday morning on a park run?
I think so, and I think what happens is that when something is on your doorstep, you become less appreciative of it. And I think Ward End Park is an absolutely stunning park. It's beautiful. And I think the Allen Rock community and Washwood Heath or Ward End are very lucky to have such a park at their disposal. And like you say, you know, lots of us live in terrace houses on very, very busy streets, busy roads, congested roads. So getting our children and ourselves into a park surrounded by trees and fresh air, that does do a lot for cognitive functioning. We find that at school, children who exercise more concentrate better. And when you spoke about COVID, that is absolutely true. We have seen a lot of children when they come into schools with a lot more social and emotional and behavioural issues as a result of COVID, as a result of spending a lot more time online also. And there's pros and cons, isn't there, to kind of the advancement of IT, etc., but also that is taking us away from those kind of natural developmental spaces that and opportunities that we get by being outdoors, socialising with others and developing language skills and emotional literacy and social interaction skills. So with something like Parkrun, which is free, there's no financial strain or aspect attached to it. We have seen our own children build some fantastic relationships, and both of my children my oldest is quite shy, so he is now from Parkrun made a best friend. So
again, this is what I was just saying. Suddenly you meet people that you would never ever come across before, and this is how people make friends, and this is how people will live in a part of Allen Rock for 15, 20 years. And somebody who lives 2 roads away, you probably never come across them. But the fact that you all are part of a park run on a Sunday morning, that makes a massive difference. Viewers, listeners, you're on the Community Talk Show with Mohammed Amin. Today we're talking with Nareen Khan, who heads up the park run at Ward End Park for children on a Sunday morning at 9 o'clock. And until the last person does the 2K run, and it's normally between 9 and 10. I was there this last weekend, and mashallah, the coverage is on our live feed, so you can see the recordings and see what it was like. So gives you a flavour of what the children do, and if parents want to come along, the parents can also run around as well. The other thing is, I would like to thank my listeners, and if you want any questions or any comments, please put them in the usual promotional chat box on our live Facebook feed, and I'll try and read them out to you. Sultan Ahmed, thank you very much. Sultan is from Pakistan, mashallah. Thank you very much for your comments. Javed Akhtar, thank you for listening into my program. Maniji, thank you for listening to my program. And Javed Khan, thank you very much, listening from all the way from Sheffield. And like I said, if there's anybody else who wants me to ask any questions to Nareen while I've got her, please put them in the chat box, and let's have this conversation, and let's encourage our children to do more. At the end of the day, we want our children to excel, and this park run is an opportunity for our children to make friends at a very early stage, and these could be their friends for life. You know, Nareen, it's quite interesting, really. When I think back to my childhood, growing up in Saltley and what have you, some of those friends were my childhood friends, and they're still my childhood friends. You know, we still look at each other. We've gone our different paths and what have you, but we still remember those days. And this is where people don't realise, is that people aspire to other people. If one child is doing better, the other child automatically gets a boost, regardless of what the parents say. And you, as a professional teacher, would experience that as part of your day job.
Yes, and I think one of the things, again, in regards to making friends in the local area, our children don't go to, they're not at school here, they go to a school which is closer to my workplace because it's just easier that way. And I think that because our children, unlike yourself, where you were able to go out and socialise and spend the whole day in the park, we don't do that. Our children are not allowed to do that anymore because of all the fears that we have.
Yeah.
And I think opportunities like this, enabling children to get together and just have that time where they can do something that's a little bit structured, but also meet other children their age, a little bit older, a little bit younger, and learn from each other, and then want to see each other again outside of parkrun. It's amazing, really, and I don't know whether you had the vibe at our parkrun. I always wanted to create a parkrun that reflected the needs and suited the needs of the community, which may be a bit different to the parkrun at Cannon Hill or the parkrun at Bruton Park. So our parkrun is very much a carnival atmosphere. So there's, it's very family orientated, and we know everybody at the moment on first name terms, and they know us on first name terms. And I would like also the opportunity to say a great big thank you to our volunteers. As you've said, Andy and Holly and their family come all the way from Nuneaton. We have Andy and Meryl that come from Sutton Coldfield. We also have my co-event coordinator, Humera, her husband Mark. They come from Moseley.
Okay.
So we have people that volunteer, but actually, as you said, they come from miles away, really.
These I always say, people like yourselves and you guys are like unsung heroes. You guys do your day job, and then you don't have to, but you've saw a gap in the community, and you want to improve the quality of life of the children in your community. And your community, the children, they're all our children, and at the end of the day, we want what's best for all our children. So I spoke to a number of, couple of parents, a couple of children, obviously off camera, and not one of them said they were forced to come out on a Sunday, especially at that time. And when I had a conversation with you before the program and before coming out, I thought 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning. For me it was lovely. And the other thing I want to ask you is, say a parent is keen, they want to bring their child along or what have you. How can they volunteer?
I'm sorry, I've just got something stuck in my throat. I do apologise. It took a little while to go down. So you saw Mariam, you spoke to Mariam, and she volunteers as a marshal. Yeah. They can volunteer in any capacity that they want to, really. And as a volunteer, they can speak to me or one of the event or my co-event coordinator. They can get in touch with Parkrun Warden. They can send us an email, and they can volunteer in any capacity that they wish to. So whatever they feel comfortable doing. Some people. We have Leslie, who comes all the way from Handsworth Wood, and she volunteers, and she always wants to do Marshall Point 1. She doesn't want to do anything else, only because she doesn't use smartphones. Yeah. So we have to, at the end of Parkrun, each child has a token and they have an ID number, and that ID number and token is scanned to give them their result, their time, etc. But she doesn't want to do anything with a smartphone because she thinks that she'll mess it up in some way or another. But volunteers can volunteer in any capacity that they feel comfortable in. And I often kind of coerce extra parents into marshalling if we're down on a marshal or two. But nobody should come to Parkrun and feel that they're going to be forced to volunteer in any role, because it's completely up to parents if they fancy it or not.
Nareen, I've got a comment and then I've got a question for you. Javed Akhtar, thank you very much. Javed has said, well done to Nareen. Every blessing and rewards for you in the undertaking of this initiative for the mental and well-being of our children in our communities. Javed has said, kids these days tend to get up late over the weekend. His question to you is, how do you motivate them to get out of their warm beds on a winter morning to do the park run?
Well, I think with my children, they don't have a choice. So neither does my husband, because he volunteers and he lugs the stuff around. So he doesn't have a choice. He would love to stay in bed, as would I on a Sunday morning. But the minute I am up and I'm out of that front door, I am not just saying this. I just feel so glad that I've done it, because I know that for the rest of the day, I can be more productive. And my children, they are a little bit reluctant some mornings when it's cold, but actually once they're out of that front door, they're racing towards the car, really looking forward to seeing their friends again and running around the park. Now, in terms of motivation, I think initially it will have to start with parents encouraging their children with the benefits, because children are children, and they we have to tell children, or we have to encourage children and advise children. But I would say to parents, if you can get them there once, they will want to come again and again and again.
Nareen, thank you very much for coming on to my program. Listeners, I'll give you a final update, and then we'll have a little break until my next next guest. Basically, Park Run is run every Sunday at Ward End Park. So this coming Sunday is a 2K run for children. Every Sunday morning from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock in the morning. And if you can try and get there for 8:45, it makes life a bit easier, because Nareen gives a kick-off speech to everybody, a motivational speech. And if anybody wants to see that in action, there's a recording on our live feed from last weekend. So that gives you an insight of what it's about and whatever you. And like I said, within half an hour, 40 minutes is done. So literally for that 1 hour is a fantastic opportunity for your children. And once again, thank you very much for listening to my first part of my program. I'll be back in a few minutes, and I'll speak to you in a bit. Thank you. Stay tuned.
Thank you.